In the September edition of Seek Out the Arts, we are exploring Grant Wood's American Gothic. I'm also going to be reading to you my new favorite Gothic poem and so much more. I hope you'll join us. Hello everyone, Jennifer L. Scott here, and welcome back to the Daily Connoisseur. We took a few detours with Seek Out the Arts this summer where we explored time travel and even UFOs in ancient works of art, and that was really fun for me. I know a lot of you seem to enjoy them too. And now as we head into fall, we are back to the more traditional format of this show. Today we're going to be studying American Gothic by Grant Wood. And I also have a William Wordsworth poem that has absolutely shaken me to my core. I can't wait to read it to you. Plus, we're going to be discovering some new music and more. Seek Out the Arts is brought to us by the Chic Society, which is channel memberships here on YouTube. If you love my channel, if you want to support it on a higher level, consider joining the Chic Society. I do one members-only vodcast every week. Once a month, we go live and do a Zoom call where we get to see each other. We even have a pen pal program that is available to all members. The names that you're seeing on the screen are from some of the upper tiers in the Chic Society. And at the very end of the video, I'm going to be sharing the elegant connoisseurs with you. Okay, let's jump right into the painting that we are studying this month. It is American Gothic by Grant Wood. I'm sure almost every person who is watching this video has seen this painting. It is so famous. It's one of the most famous American paintings ever created. So let's learn a bit more about American Gothic. It was painted by Grant Wood in 1930, and it resides at the Art Institute of Chicago. Grant Wood was inspired to paint what is now known as the American Gothic house that resides in Eldon, Iowa, along with, quote, the kind of people he fancied should live in that house. The media is oil on beaverboard, and the period would be considered modernism and realism. American Gothic depicts two figures in front of what looks like a farmhouse. There is a man and a woman, okay? And that's in its most basic form, but there's so much to discuss here. Before I studied this picture, I always thought that this was a portrait of a farmer and his wife, but apparently this is supposed to be a man and his daughter, so she is not supposed to be his wife. Wood said that they were tintypes from my old family album. The figures were actually modeled by Wood's sister, Nan Wood Graham, and by their dentist, Dr. Byron McKeeby. I read that Grant Wood had a major sweet tooth, and he was frequently at his dentist's office. He even put sugar on lettuce. So when observing his dentist's face and hands, Grant said, "This is a marvelous hand, this has strength, this has character." So she's dressed in a colonial print apron that evokes 20th century rural Americana. And the man is wearing overalls covered by a suit jacket, and he carries a pitchfork. American Gothic was submitted to the 1930 annual exhibition at the Art Institute of Chicago, where it won a bronze medal and a $300 prize. The Art Institute acquired it for its collection, and from there, a picture of the prize-winning painting ran in the Chicago Evening Post and then in newspapers all across the United States, gaining fame and popularity with each printing. So this painting really made Grant Wood famous, and almost a century later, American Gothic still resides at the Art Institute of Chicago. Okay, so I feel like there's many layers to this painting. It's not as simple as it seems. Different people get different feelings when they look at this painting. I always got a kind of creepy, threatening feeling from it, but that's not what everybody gets. I would love to know how you feel when you look at this painting, but I say that because of this. This is my interpretation of it. I do see what I consider to be a farmer and I thought it was his wife, but apparently it's his daughter. The reason why I think it's a farmer is because of the overalls. He's holding the pitchfork. He looks like a man who has worked really hard his whole life, like you could see the lines in his face. We do know that this was his dentist, who apparently was a very jovial man, but in this, Wood makes him look very stern. So they both look like very hard-working people, very serious people. But the reason why I find it threatening, perhaps, is because he's holding the pitchfork upside down. Normally when you hold a pitchfork or a rake or any kind of garden tool, you have the prongs down on the ground, but he's holding it up for some reason. And usually when people do that, it's to indicate a threat, like this is a weapon. You also see the pitchfork mirrored in his overalls if you look at that. I don't know if that's symbolic at all. I tried to look up the meaning of that, if the artist ever spoke about that. To me, if I were to wildly guess at an interpretation, I would say that the pitchfork is also guarding his heart. So he is not a man who is very open with his feelings. Perhaps he's hiding something. So he's looking directly at us with a slightly threatening gaze. That's how I feel he's looking at us. Now, the woman next to him, she looks a bit worried. She is not looking at us. She's looking off in the direction of her father, not at him, but, you know, kind of in that direction. She looks very stern, very sad. Now, I don't know what direction Grant gave his sister when she was modeling this. Maybe he told her to look that way. I'm not sure. She's wearing very old-fashioned, very modest clothing. She's wearing an apron, she has the cameo and the collar, her hair is pulled back. There's a slight ringlet of hair that came loose, maybe to suggest that she was working hard that day and her hair kind of fell out. It seems to me like they have a secret and that we are the outsiders coming to their home and they don't want us to know about it. That's the feeling I get when I look at this picture. So why is this a Gothic painting? Why do they call it American Gothic? If you look at the window behind them in the farmhouse, which was built in an 1880s style known as Carpenter Gothic, you see that window that is rather unusual. It's a little ornate and it has that Gothic style. Now, I read here that this house was built in 1881 by Catherine and Charles Dibble. Then the Dibble house passed through owners for more than a century before Carl Smith donated it to the State Historical Society of Iowa in 1991. And since then, it has been transformed into a museum celebrating Grant Wood and the painting that made him and the house famous. So this is the actual house that American Gothic was based on. Apparently, Grant Wood was traveling through Iowa and he saw this farmhouse and took out, I believe it was a receipt or a notebook or something, and he sketched it out quickly so he wouldn't forget it. So you know how I'm always advocating that you carry a notebook with you? This is the exact reason why. You never know when inspiration will strike. And he saw that farmhouse, he sketched it down, and that was the beginning of one of the most famous American paintings in history. It was based on this house, but you look at the window itself, and the window for some reason to me looks a bit ominous. There's a lace curtain in front of it. What's hiding behind that window? What are the secrets in this house? So yes, there is kind of like a dark side to this painting, and I think that that's what is brought out with the Gothic aspects of it. But of course, it also can represent regionalism or even nationalism. So many people thought that the work was a satire on Midwesterners and how they are out of step with the modernized world. But Wood intended to convey a positive image of rural American values. So with this, he offers a vision of reassurance at the beginning of the Great Depression. Writers like Gertrude Stein and Christopher Morley thought that American Gothic satirized provincialism of small-town America. But as the Great Depression hit and it really damaged the American morale, American Gothic was viewed as a much-needed celebration of the nation's fortitude and spirit. Something I didn't notice until I read it was that Grant Wood's signature is almost missed. You can see it at the very bottom of the man's overalls against the denim. So he doesn't have a big old flashy signature there. It's very understated. I want to close on American Gothic with two quotes from the artist himself. He said, "The people in American Gothic are not farmers, but are small town, as the shirt on the man indicates. They are American, however, and it is unfair to localize them to Iowa." Okay, so I was wrong. I assumed that he was a farmer, but he says that they're not necessarily farmers. And then he also gave this statement: "There is satire in it, but only as there is satire in any realistic statement. These are types of people I have known all my life. I tried to characterize them truthfully, to make them more like themselves than they were in actual life." So there you have American Gothic by Grant Wood. I would love to know what your interpretation of this painting is. Please leave it in the comments down below. I wanted to read some Gothic poetry to you in this episode to correspond with the American Gothic painting. And while I was doing my research, I came across this poem by William Wordsworth, who's one of my favorites, called "We Are Seven." The poem is rather long, so we're only going to focus on this poem during this episode. I'm going to read the whole thing to you. So I'm going to read it first, and then we'll discuss what it means, which is very interesting. So this is "We Are Seven" by William Wordsworth. "A simple child that lightly draws its breath and feels its life in every limb, what should it know of death? I met a little cottage girl. She was 8 years old, she said. Her hair was thick with many a curl that clustered round her head. She had a rustic woodland air, and she was wildly clad. Her eyes were fair and very fair. Her beauty made me glad. Sisters and brothers, little maid, how many may you be? How many? 7 in all, she said, and wondering looked at me. And where are they, I pray you tell? She answered, 7 are we, and 2 of us at Conway dwell, and 2 are gone to sea. 2 of us in the churchyard lie, my sister and my brother, and in the churchyard cottage I dwell near them with my mother. You say that 2 at Conway dwell, and 2 are gone to sea, yet ye are 7. I pray you tell, sweet maid, how may this be? Then did the little maid reply, 7 boys and girls are we. 2 of us in the churchyard lie, beneath the churchyard tree. You run about, my little maid, your limbs they are alive. If 2 are in the churchyard laid, then ye are only 5. Their graves are green, they may be seen, the little maid replied. 12 steps or more from my mother's door, and they are side by side. My stockings there I often knit, my kerchief there I hem, and there upon the ground I sit, and sing a song to them. And often after sunset, sir, when it is light and fair, I take my little porringer, and eat my supper there. The first that died was Sister Jane, in bed she moaning lay, till God released her of her pain, and then she went away. So in the churchyard she was laid, and when the grass was dry, together round her grave we played, my brother John and I. And when the ground was white with snow, and I could run and slide, my brother John was forced to go, and he lies by her side. How many are you then, said I, if they 2 are in heaven? Quick was the little maid's reply, O master, we are 7. But they are dead, those 2 are dead, their spirits are in heaven. 'Twas throwing words away, for still the little maid would have her will, and said, Nay, we are 7. Okay, how powerful is that poem? I don't know how I missed that in my study of poetry all these years. So in We Are 7, we have a man, the narrator, speaking to a little girl. And he comes across her, he's charmed, and he asks her a few questions. Oh, how many brothers and sisters do you have? And she says that we are 7, so she basically has 6 brothers and sisters, she's the 7th. And when he gets to know her a little more, he asks where they are. She says that 2 are gone to sea, and 2 of us are at Conway dwell, and then there's her. And then he finds out that 2 are buried in the churchyard. So the narrator tries to convince the girl that she can't include the 2 of her dead siblings who are buried in the churchyard because they've passed on. And so he's trying to convince her that there's only 5 of them. But she insists that there are 7 siblings. And it's like she has this either an innocence of death or a different view upon it, a more mature view than even adults have, as is expressed here. Because it's like she is so convinced she will not be swayed that her brother and sister still live, but in a different way. If you've ever lost a loved one, this provides so much comfort that you are never separated from them. Yes, you're separated in the 3D, in the physical, but the fact that she goes to their graves, she is knitting, sewing, and taking her meals by their graves, that she is still with them somehow in spirit, and that she refuses to remove them from her family tree. She insists that they are 7. And wow, I just feel like this poem has so much symbolism in it with the 7 siblings, the 12 steps from the door. I really want to study this even more and find out what exactly prompted Wordsworth to write this poem. But I think it's so beautiful, and it shows the deep intelligence that children often have because they're not jaded by what the world tells them yet. They have a deep knowing about these things sometimes. So that's one of my new favorite Gothic poems, We Are 7 by William Wordsworth, and I would love to hear what you think about it down below. For the musical selection this month, I would love for you to check out my friend Luke Faulkner's new album called ESJA. It is So beautiful. It has a rendering of The Wanderer, which is one of my favorite pieces by him. Another beautiful song called Beneath the Crystal Veil. And the title of the album, the song ESJA itself, is absolutely incredible. So I would love for you to check out Luke. I think it's so important to support modern composers, especially in this day and age, neoclassical compositions that truly transform our lives. And I listen to this album all the time. It really influences how I write and the content I create. So I will leave a link to his album down below. Finally, before we get to the Elegant Connoisseur mentions with you, I wanted to mention my writing mentor, Alan Watt. He has so many incredible classes in the LA Writers Lab. You can take them online, so you could be anywhere in the world. He does a Tuscany writing retreat every year. The first retreat has sold out for 2024. He has added a new date, so he's doing 2 Tuscany retreats this year. And Al has generously offered a major discount to the Daily Connoisseur audience. So if you are a writer, if you are interested in traveling to Tuscany, the dates for this trip are May 20th to 27th of 2024. He is giving the Daily Connoisseur audience $200 off. It's an early bird price, so I'm going to leave the link down below. And I highly recommend Al's workshops. I don't think I would be a writer if it weren't for him. That's how strongly I feel about them. And now the Elegant Connoisseur mentions. The Tuscany Writing Retreat with Alan Watt from the LA Writers Lab, Jenny Williams from Carrot Top Paper Shop, Elaine Brisebois, certified nutritionist and women's weight loss coach, Ashley Buffa, Freedom Mom's Smart Kids Chore System, Guy Blaze, author of Love Like the French, A Guide to Better Romance and Relationships, Dr. Kate Philbin, transpersonal psychologist and professionally certified life and executive coach, Carrie Van Hooser, author of 'Tis the Season for Poetry, Louise Bromhead, psychologist, author of Illness Recovery Well-Being, Macondo Forever, Woven Placemats, Teresa Maples from Self-Care Routine Cards, Alan's Scottish Shortbread, Sturm Brothers Custom Design and Fine Jewelry, Studio Duquesa Fine Art Branding and Stationery, The Apron Diva by Denise Jordan with pretty and practical aprons. And thank you to the following: Catherine Ray, Anne-Marie Ramsey, Catherine Higginbotham, Darby Zweifel, Jenny Candelaria, Jet Raleigh Heron, Gina K. Henry, Juliette Keeler-Lebien, Karen Lynn Interior Design, Lauren Maida, Linda Eckloff, Maria Condor, Moonshadow Welsh Ponies, and Royal Crow. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Daily Connoisseur. Thank you to the Chic Society for bringing this series to us. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. Please leave them down below. And in the meantime, keep calm and remain classy. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Thank you.